Hello and welcome to my video on how to do the Tunisian honeycomb stitch. This stitch pattern is a 2-stitch repeat and a 2-row repeat, but there is a way to work with an odd number of stitches and an odd number of rows, and I will do my best to explain how to do that. So the 2 stitches used in this stitch pattern is the Tunisian simple stitch and the Tunisian purl stitch. So you need to know how to do those 2 stitches to do the honeycomb stitch. If you don't know how to do the Tunisian simple stitch and or purl stitch, I will link my tutorials for both of those in the description below. So watch those first if you don't know how to do those before you watch this tutorial. All right, and as you can see, I already have a foundation row worked up. And the 2-stitch repeat for row 1 of the 2-row repeat, you just work a Tunisian simple stitch and then a Tunisian purl stitch. And you just repeat those 2 stitches all the way across. Simple stitch, purl stitch, simple stitch, purl stitch, simple stitch. And now if I worked an odd number of stitches, I would end on the simple stitch. But if you're doing an even number, you end on the purl stitch. And now we need to work our last stitch by going through the 2 loops on the edge, yarning over, pulling up a loop, and then a return pass to complete the row. Oops. And that is the first row of the 2-row repeat. All right, the second row of the 2-row repeat is going to be just the opposite of the first. So for the first row we did simple stitch, purl stitch over and over. So now we're going to do purl stitch, simple stitch all the way across. So if you ever get lost on what stitch you need to do next, just look at what the stitch for the previous row worked was. So here's a simple stitch, so now I know that I need to do the opposite of that and work a purl stitch. So row 2, we're doing purl stitch, simple stitch, purl stitch, simple stitch, purl, simple, and purl. So if we were working an odd number of stitches, we would end with the purl stitch for the second row. But even number, you would end with the simple stitch. And then we need to work the last stitch by going through the 2 loops on the edge, completing the row with a return pass. I'm going to do the 2 rows of the 2-row repeat again. So we now need to do simple stitch and then purl stitch. So again, remember, if you lose track of where you're at, you're just doing the opposite of the stitch you did on the previous row. So you can see I got a purl stitch here, so I need to do a simple stitch. So now I'm doing simple stitch, purl stitch, simple stitch, purl stitch, simple, purl, simple, and purl. And now I'm going to work my last stitch and return pass. So if I wanted to work an odd number of rows, I could end with row 1, and that would be no problem. It really doesn't matter what row you end on for the 2-row repeat. All right, and now I'm going to do the second row of the 2-row repeat, which is just the opposite of the first. So we start with purl stitch and then do simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, work your last stitch, and then return pass to complete your row. All right, and that is what the honeycomb stitch looks like. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and give this stitch pattern a try. Thanks for watching.